sunrise, sunset. Today is the best one yet. Crab pot, horsefly, not a cloud in the southern sky. Starry night, crescent moon, and palmetto tree. I'm so high, you see, on the low country, salt and sea hospitality. I'm so high on the low country.
So welcome, guys, Front Porch Forum. We're back here at 27 Crystal Beach Circle with Kevin Keys of Savannah Hardscapes. Kevin, you and I have known each other and worked together on multiple projects, and your wealth of knowledge as it relates to the masonry industry as a whole, not necessarily just brick, but also stonework and many other things. So I'm just going to ask if you could tell everyone a little bit about yourself and what you bring to the table.
Be glad to. When I was younger, I used to travel quite a bit, and I would see ancient ruins and medieval ruins, and just wondered about all this method that these guys used to do all that. So when I came back to the States and tried to find somebody to teach me that, it was very difficult because the families were knitted together and they really didn't want to share the secrets of masonry. But I found some people that would teach me, and I've been in it for 45 years and loved it. I still learn something every day. The things I like to divide masonry or hardscapes into two areas. One is the structural foundations, retaining walls, things that you don't really see, and then the other part is the more artistic and projects like that where there's a vision involved. A retaining wall is a structural thing. Got to put the rebar and just build it right, and no one really looks at it. But these other projects have a vision. Somebody sees something in a magazine, another house. When they're traveling, they see something they want to replicate. And then the thing that I love the most about masonry, really, I love the technique and everything, but collaborating with people that have a vision, and that comes. Josh is a great collaborator, and it could be, the landscape architect, interior designer, the owner, just so many people bringing this thing together. The old adage is you can take 2 pallets of stone down, or put it down, and take 5 different masons, and it's going to end up 5 different ways, unless they have the direction and technique that they're trying to reach that vision that is possible. Sometimes things aren't possible, but we bring methods around that'll get as close as possible in our era. And
so, Kevin, where are you from?
I was born in the territory of Alaska, which is irrelevant, but Central California coast and Southern California, I learned my trade through apprenticeship and many different local stones that we used back there and techniques. I had some incredible teachers through the way, and I've gleaned off them a lot of innovative things through the years that me and my teachers have really developed, and then collaborating, like I say, I learn something all the time.
And Kevin, you are a trade partner that I learn from, and oftentimes I'll have an idea or we'll be working on a project together where we're given an idea and we've got to find the best solution.
Right.
So a lot of times it's blending structural with aesthetic and making aesthetic look structural.
Yes.
And that we've got a good example of that here. This area isn't known for stone. We don't have stone, we don't have rock.
Right.
Indigenous native species that were available at the time of, say, early 1800s, late 1800s, And in this case, what we're trying to replicate here is a home that was originally built in say, the early 1900s, 1930-ish. They would not have utilized necessarily cinder block as a pier. Typically, they would have put this home on a brick pier that would have been placed on a minimal footing, if a footing at all, and it would have been put on probably compacted fill. They would have dug a hole, they would have compacted it, and just started there, working their way up with their brick piers. The home I grew up in was built in 1929, and that's exactly how it was built. I actually have a good friend who is with a general contractor at that home this morning, looking at raising that house because it was built too low and moisture became an issue, and there's some things that go along with that. We're high here, and moisture obviously is a consideration. We're going with an enclosed crawl space, but I'm going to talk a little bit about the foundation, and then we're going to circle back on the brick.
Okay, great.
So we have, and if we can take a look here, just like the homes that we looked at earlier today at Oyster Street and the Hayward house. The Hayward house may have been a little bit more difficult to see, but what this is meant to replicate is a brick pier. We're working to hide the CMU columns. And from a size standpoint, Kevin, can you talk to us a little bit about, the sizes of the bricks that we're using here, and I guess the historical accuracy and structural accuracy of how we were able to pull this off?
Well, to go way back in history, there's a lot of Irish that came to this area. I was looking at a travel documentary the other day, and it showed a brick wall in Ireland. I thought it was Savannah. It's the exact same brick in Dublin that looks just like these. The early ones were laid with lime mortar, which we've replicated here. We've done a weathered joint that looks like it's had rain on it and storms for, a century. And the rough sand is more like the old sand. Many of the things that you see now may have been repointed up that would look different, but this represents even a wall that may have had stucco on it that had fallen off and just worn away because it's lime. With this type of mortar and the technique on the joint, I think we've really gotten there.
The brick that we're using is meant to replicate the true Savannah Gray. And we talked previously, Kevin, on another segment about the Savannah Gray. So we've got an original here. So this brick, could have been fired in between 1820 and 1860. But this is a brick that today would sell for upwards of $6, $8, $10 a brick. The replica that we're going with is this guy. This is by Old Carolina, and this is their new Savannah Gray. Now, a lot of the texture is worn off of this, but we still have some remaining mortar. This brick's what, about $1.25, $1.50, roughly? So it's not an inexpensive brick. It is an oversized brick, so it's going to take less of these in comparison with a more inexpensive brick. So at the end, it's maybe a little bit better value. Cherokee is another manufacturer that makes a great replica of a handmade brick. And between the two of those companies, that's about the majority of the bricks that we use today. This solid brick works wonderful for our stairs. We weren't able to use this on the piers because structurally, as we talked about earlier, there was a steel detail that was provided to us by our structural engineer that was cost prohibitive. The guys came up with a great way to make it work, but at the end of the day, there was a more cost-effective approach. So what we did here is we poured isolated pier footings, and we came up with 8-inch block as well as 12-inch block, and we've wrapped it with same manufacturer, Old Carolina thin brick. Now, Old Carolina is one of the few manufacturers that actually makes an outside corner, which is a big deal because once we're done, and Kevin, you and the masons are complete here, this truly looks like a solid brick pier. And the spacing could not be achieved. We would not even have been able to get it that tight and that small if we would have used a solid brick in the original structural detail. So at the end of the day, it actually works out better and more authentic than it would have been. So from here, we'll attach 3/4 inch, 4x8 sheets of PVC material to the backside of our piers, paint it black, put a 1x6 lattice hog fencing up there, and we have a home that looks period authentic to, say, a 1930s and even earlier home that would have been built on a pier foundation. And if we look here, Kevin, as you guys have been working to prepare footings for our side entry steps here, you can see the amount of shell that's coming out of the ground here. You know, again, there was no stone in this area. We had the bricks that were being produced by Hermitage Plantation down in Savannah, the Carolina Grays, and we had shell that would have been burned to gain lime, and through that process mixed with sand and water, the original settlers to this area created tabby. So, Kevin, can you tell us a little bit about your experiences with tabby and your uses of it?
We've been able to replicate some of the tabby structures, also using a mortar that looks like the old lime mortar, and there's many techniques and results with that. It's just there again, it's collaboration and doing some samples and putting things together, how close they want them, if they want them stacked, if they want them just kind of put on. There are some tremendous old tabby structures around the area that are interesting to look at. You can do it with a stucco or even a cast in place, and using the oyster at different sizes. There's a lot of variables in that.
But before concrete, this was the concrete,
right,
for this region.
Yes.
No stone, no natural limestone, flagstone, Tennessee stone. It was old Savannah, original Savannah gray brick and tabby. That was it. That was the building components that were utilized, other than wood. Let's walk around the backside and let's take a look at our fireplace, at our chimney.
Great.
So on the other side of the house here, we've got our chimney, and Kevin and I are working through some flashing details. We're working through details associated with the aesthetics as well as structural as we get up here to the top. So let's walk over here, Kevin. I want to just touch on a couple of things. On the back side of the fireplace, we've got several brick that have been placed temporarily. And these are to be removed for us to incorporate an ash dump. It's not something that we do a lot of nowadays, but it used to be very, very much commonplace. So once we've done burning the fire, we open up the dump, drop the ashes in, and there'll be a cast iron door on the back side that we'll be able to open and clean without having to pull things throughout the house. As we go up, Kevin, your masons have done a great job in working with us to incorporate a copper flashing detail along with a waterproofing agent that's bonded the isocurn fireplace to the flashing detail. And I'll incorporate some photos and imagery that kind of backtrack to show that process step by step. And then we overlay the corner copper 6x6 angle flashing with the zip wall tape. So as we look up, you can actually catch a glimpse of that 6x6 angle copper in the corner here. And you can see the HLM 5000, the black waterproofing agent that has been painted onto the side of that. Kevin, why do we want a separation between our brick chimney and our wood framed house?
The expansion and contraction, and just we could actually have a minor earthquake here and hurricanes. That will keep the fireplace safe from cracking any of the flues, which will isolate obviously the embers and heat, and keep the house safe for fire.
So we've created a 2-inch gap there, and we'll work with our friend Dana Russett to build a custom piece of flashing that will tuck into the back side of the masonry, bridge that gap, and come out again and provide a surface for us to be able to place our lap siding onto. It also serves as a termination point for us to be able to finish our siding against, so we don't have wood meeting masonry. Oftentimes that's overlooked, and you see the guys just run the wood all the way up tight, and the painter's asked to caulk that joint, and not the right way to go about it. Certainly easy and fast, but not the right way. This takes a little bit more time, but it's meant to last. It's meant to serve the appropriate purpose. And then here we'll actually score with a masonry saw 2 inches off, and we'll tuck in a piece of flashing that will go in and meet up where we've left off the joint where we anticipate the most opportunity for movement. We've stepped and tiered these shoulders of this chimney. And Kevin, you can speak to this. Different masons in different regions use different techniques.
What's been kind of interesting about this is that when you go around this area of Bluffton, there was a mason that used this technique on the shoulders. There's 12 different ways to build a shoulder on fireplaces. And the mini fireplaces that I've built, we had kind of a technique in the area that I used to build. We could drive around the neighborhood, say, yeah, that's ours, that's ours, that's ours, because of the custom top cap that we used and the shoulders. And it's neat when you go around this area, when Josh brought this vision to us, that I would stop by and look at, even there's one right up the road here, with the step type of shoulder. So this is going to blend right into whoever that old mason was that did a lot of these.
And it's enjoyable to work with trade partners such as Kevin, because you enjoy this, I enjoy this. And to be able to bring a vision and an idea and a concept to someone such as yourself, you can take it and run with it.
Yeah, I love it.
Give you a little bit of ammunition, and then you come back to me 3 days later and say, hey, well, I went by the Hayward house, and they actually tiered that twice, and they did this at the top. And there's the Loudon home, the family that ran the original Loudon oyster cannery down at the end of Bridge Street. That's where our cap concept comes from. We didn't visit that house. It's private property, and I haven't asked the resident, but that's where we've taken that from. So while many of these ideas are taken from the Hayward house, there's another house down the street here where we initially saw the concept of stepping the brick, but it also allows us to go from our firebox width, which is a fire rock product. Fire rock isokern, competitors, very similar. Today's fireplaces are made with actual volcanic pumice stone. So they harvest volcanic stone from Iceland, Greenland.
One is from Iceland. I don't know where the other one gets theirs.
So they take that and they break it up, they mix it and make it and mold it into, I don't want to say a Lego set, but it's a building block set.
Basically, yeah.
And it makes building a fireplace extremely, I don't want to say easy, but it makes it more streamlined. And we can do a lot with fireboxes, from widths, heights. We can build them that incorporate 2 flues to gather the opening that we need to accommodate a wider firebox. So inside of this is a 48-inch isokern, and we have a 36-inch opening. Those steps allow us to come into our flue width, where we continue all the way up and we'll step out for our cap. And we just had a meeting this past week with a roofing contractor where we went over what we needed to achieve from a flashing detail. And on the back side of the flue facing the house, we're actually going to switch back over to the thin brick with the outside corners to eliminate the need for any structural steel and place that just above the flashing that we need for our roof. Furthermore, and I guess most importantly for me, is we offer a true counter flashing technique that gets adjusted for all of our homes and all of our needs, that is not done as commonplace with most, I'd say with most builders and most contractors, roofing contractors in the industry, where we will flash all the way up to the flue, the isokern flue, so that if any water gets into that cap, comes down, there's no way that it can make its way into the house. It's true through-wall flash with weep holes that allow that to drain to the exterior. It takes patience, and it takes a good mason and a roofer to pull that off.
Another couple steps, but you're not up there fixing things through the years.
Absolutely, absolutely. And again, just the incorporation here, we're gonna tooth in a couple of brick to get it pulled back enough to where it meets the back side of our pier detail. And after that fencing is put in place from the exterior, this will look like a period, true, conventionally built masonry fireplace.
Yep, rustic joint, just like the old days. Very nice.
Well, Kevin, thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you for your coordination and help. Yes, sir.
We'll see you later and see you Monday.
Yes, sir. Well, guys, thanks again. That wraps up this edition of Front Porch 4. We'll see you next time.
Sunset, sunrise, dunes whisper a lullaby, red drum, stray cat, lemon sun and a pine straw hat, secret spot in the shade of a canopy. I'm so high you see on the low country, salt and sea hospitality. I'm so high on